Final report of the commercial starship Nostromo, third officer reporting. The other members of the crew, Kane, Lambert, Parker, Brett, Ash, and Captain Dallas, are dead. Cargo and ship destroyed. I should reach the frontier in about 6 weeks. With little luck, the network will pick me up. This is Ripley, last survivor of Nostromo, signing off. Here's your look at the new NECA toys, Alien, Ripley, in her compression suits. In a remote region of the galaxy, United States space tug Nostromo, carrying a cargo of mineral ore, makes its return journey to Earth. The ship's crew, 5 men, 2 women, and a cat, are awakened from their hypersleep chamber when Mother, the onboard computer, monitors a strange transmission. According to company law, the crew must investigate any signal indicating possible intelligent life. What begins as a routine search mission quickly escalates into a nightmare of unimaginable terror when the crew discovers and brings aboard an extraterrestrial life form. Before we get the reviews started for Ripley in her compression suits, the first thing I'm going to do is take my tape measure and put it right to the very top of her head. After all, my job, I feel, is to also be able to tell you guys just how tall these figures actually stand. According to the readouts, Ripley in her compression suit version 2, this is the second time we've gotten this figure, stands 7.3 inches in height. We can switch that over to centimeters, revealing that the figure is 18.5 or 18.5 centimeters tall. I'd like to thank the folks over at NECA Toys that provided the sample of Ripley in her compression suit that we could have a look at in this review. As I've already stated, this is the second time we've gotten this figure, a double dip, but an improved upon dip. Let's bring in the original one so you guys can see the difference between the two. While they share the same bodies, there seems to be some real drastic changes with Ripley's head sculpt, which we'll spend a little bit more time talking about in a second. We can also bring in another Ripley, the one that we looked at from the 40th anniversary, I believe. That's that one right there. And you know, funny enough, at the time that I was trying to do the review of that initial jumpsuit Ripley, I couldn't find the original Ripley. Well, sure enough, as I found the one with the compression suit, lo and behold, I also found the original Ripley as well. Boy, there's a lot of Ripleys going on there. And just to break things up a little bit, so it's not just all Ripley, we can also bring in Kane, just to show you as well. I also wanted to bring this guy in as well, so you guys can also see that they're using roughly around the same compression suit from one figure to the other. Wow, that's a lot of Ripleys. Having a look at the accessories that come included with Ripley now. Starting first, she comes included with the grapple gun. This is the same one that she uses at the very end of the movie to jettison out the intruding alien that stows aboard with her. Of course, on the very end, she does have the little grapple hook that goes on the very end of the gun. We'll look at that in a second. The gun itself is very nicely done in a dark gunmetal gray with a lighter silver added to the top and some additional burgundy thrown in there as well. Really nicely done. Unfortunately, though, she does come included with a couple of variations to the grapple hook. She comes with one that's closed shut, as you can see right there, and one that's extended out, revealing the prongs on the sides of the grapple hook. The idea is supposed to be that you're taking either one of these and skewering the top of the gun. The gun is supposed to have, let me just show you here, it's supposed to have a hole on the very end of it. Unfortunately, though, the one that I did get doesn't have the hole, so I can't actually take the hook and lodge it inside. I may have to just try to take myself something small enough. A toothpick would certainly break, but I probably could find maybe like a, I don't know, a small metal dowel or something, or even like a pin, and see if I can force that way. I did want to at least show you guys that immediately got out of the packaging. Unfortunately, I can't put the grapple line in there. I could have easily just fibbed this, already done all the process, and showed you guys that it would sit inside, basically like that. But I did want to show you guys just immediately out of the packaging, can't quite pull that off. So again, I'm going to probably take myself, maybe even a thumbtack, may even do the job fine. You need something small enough that's going to be able to open that opening up on the end of the barrel. Of course, you can take the grapple gun. She has 2 hands, but really only one of the hands is suited for the job. It's this one right over here. And you just fit that into her handle, just into her hand like that, with the handle, of course. It looks good. Definitely going to be the way I'm going to display, I think, the figure. So it's a little disappointing, unfortunately, for the gun. Again, I can't say that's across the board for every single gun that comes included with this version of compression suit Ripley. Definitely, again, did want to point it out in this part of the review. The other thing she comes included with, similar with other compression suits, is she actually comes with a 2-part dome, a helmet that, of course, that's going to cover over her face. Quickly, the first thing you will want to do is remove the head. The only reason why is the way that they've given the clearance to this is not nearly enough to afford the head. So if you try forcing this down, what you're only going to be then doing is scuffing the side of the face and most definitely scuffing the paint as well. I just think I like saying scuffing. So what you will want to do is just remove the head. If you find you're having any difficulties removing the head, you may want to just submerge this in hot water or just take a hot hair dryer. That's usually what hair dryers end up being, hot. I guess there are cool settings for hair dryers too, but just run a few passes across that just to soften it up. Let's remove the head just like that. And then from there, you're going to take the bottom end of it and you're going to fit it into these little grooves. That little canal that runs across the outer edge of there, you're going to fit that into it. Don't be upset if you can't get it in there. A lot of times it's more suggested than anything else. It doesn't really fit right in there. A lot of times you're really just going to be resting it into that little opened canal. Then from there, we're going to go ahead and take the head. Even if you don't take the dome and attach it completely in place, it's enough you really only need to get the head in there while the dome is in place. Does that make sense? Does that make sense what I just said? You're basically going to hold the head while still holding the dome, the bottom part. Just adjust the head, make sure it's nice and straight, or really any which way that you want. Fit that down, and then from there, you're going to take the top part of it, and you get a closer look at what it looks like. Clearly, it looks like they're using a darker plastic here. It almost seems like a little bit of a marbling that's on the top of it. It could also just be the way that they've dry brushed over top of it. But then you're going to take that part of the dome. It's like we're putting together a puzzle, and that's just going to fit over top like that. It's a really high dome, but it definitely does look good with the figure. And then from there, you can just spin this around. On the back, there's 2 tubes. There's the smaller black tube, which is supposed to fit right into that hole there. I'm doing my best not to block that with my big giant sausage fingers. But this fits just into here. And then the larger tube, the more easier of the two, fits just into the top there. It may be easier for yourself just to take the bigger tube first and feed that through. And then when you have that all fixed and set up, sort of just do your best to navigate the secondary tubing into the bottom end of the helmet. Just like that. You see still enough of Ripley's head sculpt that it doesn't blur it too much. The plastic, designed the way that it is, still gives you a pretty clear look at the figure's head sculpt inside. Now, if you already have that other Ripley that we will be comparing it with in a second, I guess technically you could display one figure without the helmet and then one figure with the helmet. To go ahead and reverse the process that we've just done, it's easy again just to, first of all, detach the hose on the back. You don't want to start ripping things off. Take this top part off and put that to the side. And then again, instead of forcing this off, scuffing, damaging the plastic of the head sculpt underneath, just sort of grab like the head of the fake figure just with your thumb and kind of hold everything together and just twist it off. Just like that. Then from there, you can quite easily remove the head, put the bottom half of this to the side, and then we can go ahead and just replace the head, put it back into the torso where, of course, it belongs. Of course, I'm sure you guys will want to see the comparisons between the two figures. That was the whole purpose of me pulling this out from my tickle trunk. We can move this figure over to the side and bring in the original Ripley head sculpt. The new head sculpt, to its credit, has a much softer paint job. It gives it a much more realistic look and less the waxy look that the original head sculpt has. While I still feel like perhaps that's not a bad head sculpt on the original one, the paint definitely gets afforded on this one and gives it a much more, well, realistic look and a little less sickly like this one ends up looking right here. This one here, the original one that we got, is a lot shinier, as you can certainly see the light bouncing off of her face. So I will say that improvements have been made on the head sculpt. The hair seems to be identical. I would be probably hard-pressed to not say that the head sculpt, it looks like they have remolded a new head. I don't think it's just the case where they took the original one and painted it differently. It looks like some of the things have been changed, specifically the areas of the chin. And it seems also like the nose, too. I feel like the original nose on this Ripley was just a little bit more pointier. Of course, when you look at the rest of the figure, from head to toe, or at least from neck to toe, seems to be identical. Where changes have been made is like the colors of the bands, for example, are a little bit more this kind of off beige color. When you see it and compare it to the original one blended so much more together because a lot of the colors just seemed like they were very similar. The banding done in the beige, I think, brings a little bit more when you're looking at it. Not only that, really, but when you're looking at like the wash that they've added to the shoulder area here, the dark wash definitely brings more of the details to the forefront. The front of the piece, the front of the chest piece, is a little bit more warped, I will say, on the newer Ripley than one on the original. The original one seemed to sit a little bit more flush against her body. I don't think that the plastic has necessarily changed. They seem both the same soft material that they ended up going with, but this one just, I guess out of the packaging, just got a little warped in the process. I'm going to see if maybe I can heat that up, again, with a hot hairdryer, and maybe see if I can just bend that back into place. For the rest of the body, it doesn't, again, seem like much has changed. Even like the markers there on the fingers, both the figures originally had it, so it's not like the new figure had it where the original one didn't. The detailing on the body is, again, quite good. We've flipped the figures around so you can see the difference between the two. The tanks seem to be identical. The nozzles on the top seem to be identical. Short of, again, just the fact that one is just a little bit more painted. Just a little bit more love with that black wash of paint. Again, it doesn't seem like there's too much that's changed between the two figures. It's more so just a little bit of tweak of paint. Again, I feel a vast improvement when it comes to the paint on the head sculpt. That being said, we'll go ahead and move this one out of the way. Speaking of the head sculpt, it probably would make some sense to get a nice up-close and personal look at the head. Again, I do get a good vibe of a Ripley here, or, of course, Sigourney Weaver, who played the character in, well, 4 movies. I think they had planned to do another Alien. That sort of just fell apart. Up close and personal, I will say, like the paint work comes across more like sponging. Does that make any sense? Like very subtle airbrushing. The features aren't necessarily super sharp, but again, me saying that is only because we're looking at it super close like this. There you go. You can probably see what I'm talking about right there. The eyebrows. But again, like it's a good looking head sculpt all around, providing, again, the camera's able to focus in on that. For the rest of the details on the figure, again, we'll just spin around, covering off, I'm sure, all the same territory that we looked at when we looked at this figure the first time around. And again, just for comparisons, we can just move this figure over. We can bring in the cane so you guys can see. Not really does much change between the two bodies. It looks like they've definitely reused a lot of the elements. And again, for one other comparison, we can bring in the other Ripley. This is the suited Ripley. I guess really if you wanted to, you can also pop this head sculpt off and replace it with this one right here. Although, again, I correct myself quickly by saying that. This one does have the neck. This one, as you can see, the head is a separate piece from the rest of the neck, so scratch that. You really can't pop that off. For the figure's articulation, let's go ahead and have a look at that right now. Because Ripley's head is, of course, attached to that neck, realizing that now quickly, the head and the neck work together on that ball peg. You can move the head up, you can move the head down, back and forth. You can also rotate it all the way around. As for her arms, you can bring those out quite easily. And even though you would think that the shoulder pads would get in the way of things, because they're hinged further up around the collar piece of her suit, it doesn't limit then when you move the arms outward. In fact, again, like you probably pull them out at about a 90-degree angle, just a little less than 90 degrees. And of course, you can bring them forward, you can bring them back. I really like that the shoulder pads are a separate piece like this. She has a swivel on the bicep. It's kind of even hard to see it because you look at it and it almost looks like it's the rest of the molding. Now, she does have some limitations when it comes to her elbows. You can see there's the hinge joint right there, but there's very little of it actually being visible. Because of that, it also means there's very little in the way that you can actually bend the arm. You can get the arm to about there. I know, that's not really a lot. You can also rotate the lower arm. Again, some nice detailing done on the control pads on her forearms. And you can also rotate her hands all the way around. Those, of course, sit onto ball pegs. For the upper torso, Ripley has a ball joint, and the ball joint is actually right here. So in some ways, this flap, I know it's a little more curved here, but this flap actually does a great job of hiding the joint that's underneath there. She does also have a secondary ball joint, as you can probably see, follow the line right here. She has a ball joint right there as well. So really, all things considered, for a figure that has some limitations when it comes to her elbows, she's rather quite articulated for the rest of her body. Let's just straighten that out. It looks a little strange. Bringing her legs out, you can see that they're all in hinge joints on the inside. And again, you can bring those legs forward. You can bring those legs back. The lower half of her outfit is basically just a rubber skirting. Some have called this the plastic diaper. I think that's really a harsh term to be using. But I mean, again, it covers off the idea of hiding off those joints. People would like to call them a diaper. Sure. Again, we'll call them a diaper. Again, legs go forward and back. You can bring them out. She has a swivel basically where that attaches to the top joint. She has a bend at the knee, which also allows the lower leg to rotate back and forth. And she does also have foot articulation. You can also rock that back and forth this way as well. Just in case you are curious, if you would like to bring out from your tickle trunk of display stands a NECA display stand, then yes, she does have pegals on the undersides of her feet. Lastly, let's go ahead and just get this figure standing here. Like that. Like that. There we go. And again, we'll bring in the original Ripley that we had a look at quite a while ago, actually, when we look at it, when we think about it. Even though, let's move these over a little bit. Even though really it's essentially the same figure, just goes to show when a company goes back and just kind of finesses what a figure was originally looking like. There wasn't really necessarily anything wrong with the original Ripley. Her face was a little on the clammy side, a little on the slightly jaundiced side. I feel like they've gone then and improved the figure, not necessarily on the rest of the body, but certainly on the head sculpt. Probably the thing that is probably the most important thing if it comes to reissuing the figure. You'd like to think that they're going to improve the head sculpt. I feel like with a compression suit Ripley, they have gone ahead and just done that. A bit bummed, unfortunately, that Ripley's grapple gun didn't properly hold the hooks. I don't know if it was just a case where there was a little bit of plastic over top of the end of the barrel, maybe just a little bit of drilling in there with a small needle may be able to open that up, or if it's just molded completely shut. I have to, of course, point that out in this review, that it may have only been the gun that I have with this particular figure, but if you have picked up the new Compression Suit Ripley version 2, let me know if you've had similar issues with that grapple gun. That's really the only thing that I have an issue with when it comes to this figure. Even though, again, I already have the Compression Suit Ripley in my collection, and I was actually lucky enough, sometimes when I'm looking at these version 2 figures, I may not always have that original figure anymore, or I may have put it away in storage and just really have then a tough time trying to locate it. I was able to actually find the original V1 Compression Suit Ripley, which served, I felt, as a better way of comparing the figures, because then you can really see where the improvements have been made on NECA's part. Of course, through that, I was also able to find the original Ripley, so how about that? But this Ripley does have certainly those improvements. While it may not be across the rest of her body, just a few little nuances of improved upon paint, especially in those beige straps. All the colors in beige here were a little bit more lighter and paler on the original Ripley. Again, where I feel those improvements have been made the most is in their head sculpt. The head sculpt shape is roughly about the same, but the paint definitely looks a lot better on this figure, and she doesn't look as clammy as the original. A big thank you to the folks over at NECA Toys that provided the sample of version 2 Ripley in her compression suit. It doesn't actually say version 2 anywhere on the packaging, but I'm just sort of calling her version 2. What do you guys think of this figure? And if you already have that original compression suit Ripley, do you think it's worth picking her up a second go around if you've now seen the improvements that NECA has made to the figure? If you're also new to this channel, enjoying all the content you're seeing, be sure to hit the subscribe button down below. And of course, turn the bell notification on. Keep your alien peepers peeled, because even though we have finished our review of Ripley in her compression suit, we are going to be looking, though, at the rest of the figures that make up this particular wave. So make sure, again, you're coming back to this channel Monday to Friday, sometimes also sprinkled in there on the weekends as well. And as always, guys, thanks for watching. See you guys next time.